Night had fallen. A thick fog rolled in, blanketing everything in sight. The old road stretched endlessly before me, disappearing into the white abyss. A lone street lamp flickered, its weak light barely penetrating the dense fog. This place felt different, heavy, like something was watching. I could feel a chill run down my spine. The air grew cold, sending shivers down my arms. An unsettling silence hung in the air, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the rustling leaves. This was a place forgotten by time, shrouded in mystery and veiled in an ethereal silence. A place where shadows danced and whispers seemed to emerge from the fog itself. The fog seemed to have a life of its own. It swirled and shifted, taking on strange and unsettling shapes. I thought I saw figures moving in the distance. Their forms were indistinct and hazy, barely discernible from the swirling fog. I stopped for a moment, listening intently. A faint whisper seemed to ride on the wind. It was a mournful sound, filled with longing and despair. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone sent chills down my spine. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I continued down the road, drawn forward by an unseen force. The night was eerily silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. My footsteps echoed softly, swallowed by the dense fog that seemed to wrap around me like a shroud. Each step felt heavier, as if the very air was thickening, urging me to turn back. But something compelled me to move forward, a strange mix of curiosity and dread. The fog grew thicker, making it hard to see. It was as if the world was closing in, the familiar shapes of trees and rocks becoming ghostly silhouettes. The air was damp and cold, chilling me to the bone. I could barely make out the path ahead, my vision obscured by the swirling mist. The fog seemed almost alive, shifting and changing, playing tricks on my eyes. The flickering street lamp was far behind me now, swallowed by the dense white mist. Its light had been my only guide, a beacon in the darkness, but now it was gone. I felt a pang of loneliness, realizing how isolated I was in this foggy abyss. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the trees. Then I saw it. A faint ethereal light flickered in the distance. It was barely visible through the thick fog, a tiny pinprick of hope in the overwhelming darkness. My heart quickened, a mix of fear and anticipation. What could it be? A person? A ghost? Or something else entirely? It bobbed gently like someone was carrying a lantern. The light moved with a rhythm, swaying back and forth, almost hypnotic. It seemed to beckon me, drawing me closer. I felt a strange connection to it, as if it was calling out to me specifically. The fog seemed to part slightly, giving me a clearer view of the light. Curiosity and trepidation warred within me. What was that light? My mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. The fog seemed to press in on me, amplifying my anxiety. I had to know what it was, even if it meant facing my fears. And who or what could be out here in this desolate place? The stories I had heard came rushing back, tales of lost souls and wandering spirits. The locals spoke of this place with a mix of fear and reverence, warning travelers to stay away. But here I was, drawn by an inexplicable force, unable to turn back. I had heard the stories, whispered in hushed tones by the locals. They spoke of a ghostly figure, a man who had lost his way long ago and now roamed the foggy roads with a lantern in his hand. Some said he was searching for something. Others believed he was cursed to wander forever. The tales were chilling, but they had always seemed like just that. Stories. Stories of a lost soul, forever wandering the fog-shrouded roads with a lantern in his hand. The image of the lantern keeper was vivid in my mind. A spectral figure shrouded in mist, his lantern casting an eerie glow. Could it be him? Was I about to come face to face with the legend? Could it be true? Could I be nearing the legendary lantern keeper? My heart pounded in my chest as I took a step forward, then another. The light grew brighter, more defined. I felt a strange mix of fear and excitement, a sense of destiny unfolding before me. Whatever lay ahead, I knew I had to see it for myself. The fog seemed to part, revealing the path to the mysterious light. As I cautiously approached the light, the whispers grew louder. They seemed to be filled with both sorrow and a deep, unyielding anger. The light led me to a path, almost completely consumed by overgrown vegetation. It was clear that it had been a long time since anyone had dared to travel this way. The path opened up to reveal an old, dilapidated cabin. It stood as a testament to time and decay, its wooden walls rotting and collapsing in on themselves. The light emanated from within, casting an eerie glow upon the surrounding woods. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my breath caught in my throat. Bound to the light. Now he's trapped here, forever bound to the lantern that had been his only companion in his final days. Condemned to wander these roads for all eternity, searching for a woman he would never find. He became a beacon in the fog, a harbinger of despair and a symbol of undying love twisted into something dark and sinister. They said that those who saw the Lantern Keeper's light were doomed to share his fate, to be lost in the fog, forever searching for their own lost love, their souls bound to the eerie glow of the lantern. I stood there, frozen in place, as the stories swirled in my mind. The light flickered again, casting dancing shadows on the cabin walls. And then I saw him. A tall, gaunt figure stood silently in the doorway. He was cloaked in shadows, his face obscured by the hood of a heavy cloak. In his hand he held a lantern. Its light was an unnatural yellow, a sickly, pulsating glow that seemed to draw you in, to hold you captive. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. I was paralyzed with fear, my feet rooted to the spot. He turned his head slowly, and for a fleeting moment, I saw his face. It was gaunt and pale, his eyes hollow and filled with an unspeakable sadness. He looked right through me, his gaze filled with longing and despair. It was a look that spoke of centuries of searching, of a grief so profound that it had consumed his very essence. As quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished back into the darkness of the cabin. The light flickered once more, then went out completely, plunging me into darkness. The whispers stopped. The fog seemed to press in on me, suffocating me with its cold embrace. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves. Every shadow seemed to move. Every whisper of wind felt like a ghostly touch. I was paralyzed, unable to move, my eyes darting around, searching for the source of my fear. I could feel his presence lingering in the air around me. A sense of dread washed over me, cold and suffocating. It was as if the very essence of fear had taken form and wrapped itself around me. The stories I had heard as a child, the tales of the Lantern Keeper, all came rushing back. They were not just stories, they were warnings. I knew then that the stories were true. I had seen the Lantern Keeper with my own eyes. His figure was shrouded in mist, the lantern casting an eerie glow that seemed to pierce through the darkness. His eyes, hollow and sorrowful, met mine, and I felt a chill run down my spine. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a moment that would be etched into my memory forever, and I had lived to tell the tale. A raspy voice filled with ages of sorrow and regret echoed through the stillness. It was a voice that carried the weight of countless souls, lost and wandering. The Lantern Keeper's warning was not just for me. It was for anyone who dared to venture into the fog. "Beware the fog," it whispered, "and the light that shines within." The words were like a spell, binding me to the spot. I knew that the light was both a guide and a trap, leading the unwary to their doom. The fog was a veil, hiding the true nature of the forest and the spirits that dwelled within. The voice, though faint and ethereal, cut through me like a knife. It was a warning, a plea, and a curse all at once. I could feel the weight of the Lantern Keeper's sorrow, his eternal vigil, and the burden of his task. He was a guardian, a warden of the lost, and his warning was clear. It was a warning, spoken from beyond the grave, a warning that I knew I could never ignore. The forest was no longer just a place. It was a realm of shadows and echoes where the past and present intertwined. As I turned to leave, the fog seemed to part, revealing a path that led me back to safety. But the Lantern Keeper's words stayed with me, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurked within the mist. "This is why you need to beware the fog." I stumbled back in terror, tripping over my own feet as I fled back down the path. The fog seemed to reach out for me with cold, grasping tendrils as if trying to pull me back into the darkness. But I ran, fueled by adrenaline and pure, primal fear. I didn't look back. I didn't dare to. I could feel the Lantern Keeper's presence behind me, following me with his mournful gaze. His sorrow was a palpable thing, a weight that pressed down on me with each step I took. I finally broke free of the fog, stumbling out onto the familiar road. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the fear that had gripped me for what felt like an eternity. The fog had been so thick, so suffocating, that I had almost lost all sense of direction. But now, here I was, standing on the road I knew so well, yet it felt foreign, almost alien, in the eerie silence of the night. The street lamp flickered weakly, its light a beacon of hope in the darkness. It was the only source of illumination in this desolate place, casting long, wavering shadows that danced on the pavement. Each flicker seemed to whisper a promise of safety, urging me to keep moving, to not give in to the paralyzing fear that threatened to overtake me. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, its metallic gleam a welcome sight in the pale moonlight that broke through the dissipating fog. The car stood there, a silent guardian, waiting to whisk me away from this nightmare. My hands trembled as I fumbled for the keys, the cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth of my skin. The engine roared to life, a sound that brought a fleeting sense of relief. As I drove away, I could see the fog swirling in my rearview mirror. It was as if the fog had a life of its own, twisting and turning, reluctant to let me go. The road ahead was clear, but the past lingered, a haunting reminder of what I had just escaped. My grip on the steering wheel tightened, knuckles white with the effort to keep moving forward. And for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw the faint, ethereal glow of a lantern, bobbing gently in the distance. It was a ghostly light, almost hypnotic in its rhythm, swaying as if carried by an unseen hand. The sight sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder that the danger was not entirely behind me. The Lantern Keeper was still out there, forever bound to his search. His figure, shrouded in mystery and sorrow, was a constant presence in the fog. He was a guardian of the lost, yet also a harbinger of doom for those who crossed his path. His lantern, a symbol of his eternal quest, cast a light that was both a guide and a warning, a prisoner of his own grief. His face, etched with sorrow, told a story of loss and longing. The fog was his domain, a place where he wandered endlessly, searching for something or someone that could never be found. His pain was palpable, a heavy weight that seemed to hang in the air, mingling with the mist. If you ever find yourself on that lonely stretch of road shrouded in fog and silence, remember my warning, turn back. The road may seem inviting, a path to adventure or escape, but it holds secrets that are better left undiscovered. The fog is not just a natural phenomenon, it is a veil that hides the Lantern Keeper and his eternal sorrow. For the Lantern Keeper's light shines not for those lost, but for those who are destined to be. His lantern is a beacon for the doomed, a light that draws in the unsuspecting and the curious. It is a trap, a lure that leads to a fate intertwined with his own. So heed my words and let the fog be a warning. Turn back now before it's too late.